following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Chit-Chatting with Jocelyn. I'm your host, Jocelyn Davis. Karen Testerman, my co-host, who alternates with me for different shows, is out campaigning. So for all of you that don't know that, Karen Testerman is your Republican candidate for governor. And I have Doris Hohensee here, and she is running for Ward 3
State Rep.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we're going to probably we're going to go all over the place. We might play squirrel, squirrel, shiny thing, try to stick to the politics and what's going on, but also bring up some subjects and comments that are being tossed around, bandied about, that have some truth. They may not apply to here in New Hampshire, but for some reason they're crossing the border, they're coming over and scaring people. So let's see if we can address some of these issues.
Not to scare people. They're
and let's not
scared enough.
Hey, we all understand that people are already scared, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. The tactics that are being used by both sides
is
fear mongering, and taking a little bit of truth and expanding it and making it into something that it's not. And we want to see if we can quell some of these.
Well, the biggest problem we have right now is we can't have public meetings. If we're going to talk about schools, we don't have, in Nashua, we don't have physical presence of our representatives. We have virtual meetings. 4 out of 9, so it was 4 to 5, the vote to get it back in the public domain. Mm-hmm. We want public meetings because parents are concerned about the schools, how they're starting, whether it's remote or hybrid or where the heck is full-time instruction. Mm-hmm. Where are the public meetings so they can go down and talk face to face, even if it's at a distance, social distancing and all that.
I don't feel Zoom is a public meeting. I'm sorry. No. Zoom is not a public meeting.
That was created by emergency orders under Sununu.
Correct.
And it needs to go because we have 0 deaths. What do we have? 10 people in a hospital statewide?
And none of them are in ICU.
None of them are seriously ill.
Right.
So the pandemic has subsided. Let's get our public meetings back. So we don't have public alderman meetings. We didn't have a public meeting for our annual budget for the school district. So we need to get there so we can talk about these things so everybody's not home afraid.
Exactly. Well, it's also there's a lot to be said for face-to-face.
Yes.
There's a lot to be said so if I need to say something to you, Doris, you need to see my body language and my face. It doesn't allow me to be an angry person and be physical, but I think that would, me talking to you like this means a lot more, doesn't it?
Yes, and I know if you're happy or sad or it's a serious matter or not, but you can't read that over a Zoom.
No, you can't, and you also can't read it with this.
No. But
and if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 feet or a mask, not 6 feet and a mask.
In Nashua, it's a mask indoors.
No matter what.
You cannot eat a meal in the Nashua ordinance inside a building.
So you have to put the mask on at the door, walk in.
It's not the governor's orders is you go to a restaurant, you put the mask on, you walk in, you sit at your table, you take it off. But the Nashua ordinance is you wear it.
How do you eat?
There's no provision for that. They're redoing it. They want they're not getting enough compliance, so now I think they want the store owners to enforce it.
But
so doesn't that turn the store owners against the civilians?
Against their customers?
Their customers, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't that make them the bad guys? Isn't that kind of reminiscent of, Germany?
Well, why don't the police don't want to enforce it? They want
because it's not a legitimate law.
Well, we have no home rules, so where did we get this from? But they want to encourage compliance. Yep. Encouraging is where it's at, not mandating. Yet they passed this thing, and there can be fines.
So who passed that in Nashua?
The aldermen.
The aldermen that are meeting by Zoom.
Now, if I wanted to make public comment, I'd have to send them something by Wednesday. The agenda comes out on Friday, and the meeting is the following Tuesday. So how would I know what's going to be at the meeting or even on the agenda 2 to 5 days before?
That's ridiculous.
So I have no voice.
You have no voice. The public has no voice. Let's back up the crazy train. You, the taxpayers, we, the taxpayers, have been silenced.
Yes.
They're standing on our tongue.
Sununu.
While their hands in the pocket.
Sununu's order is standing on our tongues. Yes, it needs to go.
You know, listeners, you have got to know what your rights are constitutionally, as a taxpayer, as a voter, as a mom, as a dad. They do not have the right to dictate.
Well, you make your own choices. If you're very concerned, you stay at home.
Right.
If you're a little bit less, you go out with a mask and keep your distance.
Mm-hmm.
But if these tools work, why can't we have our meetings back?
If there's people that want to meet face to face, if you know,
yeah,
why not?
Well, what happened with our school board is 4 wanted to go back, 5 wanted to stay virtual. That's fine.
Isn't there somebody on the school board that said they didn't want to leave their house, but yet we saw that?
Can't go there. Can't go there. But in Hudson, they had a microphone, and all throughout the Zoom meetings, you could go to the public microphone and you had a voice. We could do the same. But one of the secretaries at the school said, no, it's against the law to hold a meeting without a quorum in place. That's the real law. You had to have a quorum in place.
You had to have 4 people.
But with the emergency order, that doesn't follow. So you could do the Zoom.
So how do you know you have 4 people in a Zoom? Well, I mean apart from the obvious.
It doesn't matter what the numbers are. With Zoom, you can do it any which way, any combination. So they're saying, no, they can't because they'd have to revert to the real law. But we still have the emergency law. Get it back in the room. There's no transparency this way. There are things that we heard on the Zoom meetings that don't turn up on the videos and don't turn up in the minutes. It's like, what's happening?
So are they being altered? I
have no idea.
If it would seem to me, and I've had this happen a couple of times in Zoom meetings where you very clearly hear person A says blah, 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 person B says blah, blah, blah. You go back to replay it, take some notes,
yes.
Go over what you're saying, and it's not there.
Multiple people heard it. A gentleman on the board said that if the schools open up, he hopes the teachers go on strike. Now, that's against the law. And they took an oath to uphold the law.
Correct.
So it just went missing. So I can't prove it. I don't know what happened. Other people heard it.
How convenient.
I don't know. But
so it was the ghost.
We need the meetings in person. If we have them in person, we actually get 2 tapes of the meeting.
Right.
Because we have the videographers and then we have our own in the building.
Right.
But no, things are getting...
So the choices for people in schools is you can allegedly go back full-time, whatever your school decides full-time is, whether it's 2 days, 3 days, or 5 days.
Well, it's 2 half days in Nashua.
2 half days?
So, and 1 for middle school and high school. 1 half day.
A week?
Yeah.
What's kindergarten and first graders doing? Nothing?
Well, they go, for elementary would be 2 half days.
2 half days. Middle school is 1 half day. So it's more trouble getting the kids to and from because they're half days. The buses are just going to get them there and turn around and have to take them home.
They may not use buses for everybody. They're not certain.
So how would the people get there?
I guess you have to figure it out yourself. And if you can't get there, you're stuck with remote.
So, all right, this is making me crazy.
And then if you go into the building, those manipulables that, because it's learning by, playing, play-based learning.
Right. Those are gone.
Well, you can't touch them because...
You get your germs.
Yeah. Germs.
So, okay, this is...
How do you teach a kid to read, a student?
If you can't...
read, if you're only there 2 half days a week.
You can't.
In Bedford, they acknowledge that any hybrid program they have, which is, and I don't know if they have half days or whole days, but if they have, 2 days a week for one group and 2 days group for the other, they're going to get 50% of the learning of what should have been learned that year academically.
And they essentially lost last year.
And that's a full day. But we're doing half days, so does that a quarter? I don't know what we're getting. And we don't start till October.
Because
we're going to be remote.
But didn't we all spend March, April, May, and June getting remote learning down pat?
Since there wasn't a lot of public interaction, the board really doesn't know how parents feel. They sent out questionnaires, and one of them was, do you want hybrid or do you want remote? And nobody asked, do you want full-time instruction? How do parents that have a mortgage to pay and 2 salaries to earn juggle that and staying at home with the kids? I mean, it worked for a little while, but
It's not on a permanent basis. It's not going to work.
Right. So I did a poll on Facebook, and I got 45% that wanted
Full-time.
in-person, full-time. They needed it.
So let's go to the figures in the state. How many kids under 20 have died?
None in New Hampshire from COVID, none.
So we could open the schools. The kids don't, we haven't had anybody die of it unless there's one of a comorbidity that we don't know of, but we don't know of any that have died.
Any age, if you have serious medical problems, you're at risk.
Right.
And those students should
stay home and do hybrid or whatever.
Well, they should, not even hybrid. If they have some type of immune deficiency or other problem, they should stay at home. But those who don't, those are the ones that should be in school.
Okay. So remote is
needed.
Is totally nobody coming to school. Hybrid is half and half.
But it's not half and half. We don't get 50%. That'd be 5 half days a week.
Oh,
We're getting
this is confusing.
2 half days a week.
2 half days a week.
So 2.5 days a week, and then Fridays will be off, no school. So Monday and Tuesday, elementary school kids would go in for 2 half days. Wednesday and Thursdays, 2 others. And then every week it switches. So you have
beginning of the week, end of the week.
No, you have Monday, Tuesday here, and then Wednesday, Thursday next week. So you can't even plan your daycare.
You can't plan your work schedule.
No, you can't plan anything. But if you're middle school or high school, it's 1 half day a week. I don't know if that date rotates or not. I have no idea. Starting in October.
So
I don't think you can do an AP course with this little, especially if it has a lab.
So we're going to fire 75% of the teachers, right? Because
No, we don't fire any of them.
yeah, but wait a minute. We're only doing 2 half days and then 1 half day for middle school and high school. So what do we need teachers for?
Talk to your school boards. We can't talk to them. I can't talk to them. But so far,
But I'm not right for thinking this. Why? And this is not a slam on teachers.
and
This is a slam on the unions.
State. Most districts throughout the state have given 100% compensation to all their employees.
So while half of us can't work, can't earn money, moms and dads are having to trade off and figure out who's the bread maker and who can work from home and actually earn a paycheck. We're still having to pay full 100% taxes to the school portion.
Didn't the president just say teachers are essential? When my daughter was declared essential, she had to go from Oakland to San Francisco by the subway, the BART, every day, and she has 3 little kids at home. She was essential. She had to work. She wasn't given a pass. She survived. Essential. That's what essential means. Now, with the teachers, there are some that are young, and they can essentially survive.
So why can't we have teachers that are young, that have no comorbidities,
Right.
that don't have any health issues? Why can't they teach in person 5 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
And the parents that want their kids, the 45 in your case, that
because
want to go?
they're trying to put bubbles around every desk. They're trying to mask them and distance them. And there's so much new regulation they're trying to incorporate into the schools that they can't fit them into the classrooms.
So kind of like our restaurants are
Yes.
open 100%, which
100%,
the dictator up in the corner office said, the inside of the restaurants are open 100%. But if you've got 2 chairs, they got to be, when you push your chair away from the table, you got to have 6 feet
So
between the
you
chairs.
might get
So
35 or 40%.
I was going to say, I think it eliminates at least 50%, if not more, of
that's-
inside seating.
That's Sununu's understanding of 100%.
That's not 100%.
Well, the restaurants aren't pulling in 100%.
No.
Right now, they're out into the streets. During the heat wave, we had them in our streets.
Oh, well, you go down Main Street, I look right out of the radio station there, and you got Jersey barriers.
Well, if it's open
and
100%,
traffic.
why wouldn't they pick them up?
I don't know. Because it's nice,
'Cause
still
it's
nice
not-
weather?
Because it's not 100%.
Because it's not 100%.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen when the snow flies and it's cold? Because this is New England, are they going to keep it at the
No, I
one-third
believe
capacity?
in November they're going to pick them up. Hopefully we don't get any snow in October. It's already a traffic nightmare if you have an emergency vehicle trying to get down there.
It's one lane of traffic each way.
Right. And if something gets blocked, yeah, it's
You're
pretty
done.
hard.
There's no way to get around. Because today I was looking at 3 sets of lights. The traffic went through 3 sets of lights. And I didn't want to go straight. I wanted to get over into the left-hand lane so I could make a left-hand turn and not sit in that traffic. I could not even get through. No one would let me through to get into the left-hand lane. They thought I was cutting. Yeah, I want to cut over to the left-hand lane.
Because there is no right lane. It just gets barriered out. Yeah.
Yeah. This is really beyond comprehension. I thought it was supposed to be 10 days and let's flatten the curve. And what are we on? 109 days?
It's not going to end.
109?
Sununu said that we're going 6 more months waiting for a vaccine. He's also signed a bill that we can be vaccinated while a patient in any medical facility while unconscious. So
if you go to surgery and they decide that they want to vaccinate you, they can?
Why would you do that? If I brought a child into a pediatric office and they said, the kid's got a fever, we're not going to do any vaccinations today. Go home and get healthy. Why, when you have got another medical condition, would they even dream of giving you?
Why would they dream of doing that?
Without consent. Why?
Well, the stories from friends that I know. There's a woman that both Karen and I know who had to take her husband up north to the hospital, goes to the hospital. They don't let her in. He's
Right.
deathly ill. She's sitting in the car for 4 hours. No phone call, no paperwork, no nothing, no contact. Comes out 4 hours later and says, you got to drive me down to the main hospital in Manchester. Gets there at 12 o'clock at night with the paperwork from the other hospital. And whoever the dingbat is that's at the emergency room won't let him in. Oh no, we have COVID. We don't take pay. What? Because he didn't come in the ambulance. He's not allowed into your hospital, into the ER. Wouldn't let him in. It took a security guard to force them to let him in. He was in surgery an hour later. 5 hours of surgery, and she had to sit in the car for the 5 hours of surgery.
Yeah.
Now
We have people delivering babies and they can't get their families to come. They can't, that used to be you're lucky if you get your husband in for a delivery now. You're lucky.
You're lucky if they do.
You're lucky if they
That's
do.
what I've heard.
Yeah.
So let me go back to what I always go back to is taxes and money. So what are we paying monthly medical premiums for when we cannot get in and get,
all our doctor's appointments have been shut down.
So what are we paying medical insurance for?
Why are we paying for City Hall? It's shut down.
Why are we paying for Concord that is shut down?
Why did Sununu need to send $500,000 to Steve Dupree to have 3 big ballrooms for a COVID operations center when he had an empty LOB and an empty State House?
That makes no sense. So how much did we pay for that?
About $500,000.
$500,000 of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
To rent a couple of ballrooms when they already had
And then
empty
every time he
state
does
offices.
a press conference, he's in another building. I mean, I don't know what he uses that because I've never, whatever. There's not enough patients to have a COVID center now. There's maybe 10 if you
We got 10.
10.
Well, we have people apparently testing positive, but testing positive is not sick.
No.
Testing positive is not symptomatic.
No.
Testing positive is not in the ICU dying. Testing positive is what we all do because the coronavirus is in all of us and has been for decades.
So
and
then-
this is a version of it.
And they're told to quarantine. Do you remember when the mayor from Manchester's daughter was tested positive?
She didn't. I saw her walking around in
no
the street.
mask. They're all out there on the street. Yeah.
So what's, not for me, but definitely for thee.
Well, it was the same with Sununu. He had a fundraiser the day after he put in that 100+ gathering. You have to wear a mask because he was getting ready for when Trump came back.
Yep.
The very next day, he has a fundraiser. And they had 90 people. So they
90.
didn't need masks.
Oh, and they didn't have to socially distance either.
No, they didn't. But they did have one picture
One
with
photo op.
one photo up with 4 masked people, and then the rest of it they just did as they pleased.
Oh my word! Oh my word! What happens with? So what happens if some of the kids go back to school, and somebody tests? Here's my bigger
They
issue.
test
Let's let
positive,
that go.
it shuts down for 2 weeks.
What about these thermometers? that are shaped like a gun. That we have suspended children across the United States for little boys and little girls that made their Pop-Tart
into a gun shape.
into a gun shape, allegedly.
Yep.
So I took my mom to the PCP, and the woman comes right up, points, and I was like, this, and she's like, excuse me. I was like, excuse me, what do you do? I'm taking a temperature. I don't care. You don't point anything at anybody's head, and without saying, I'm going to take your temperature. Is that okay? They do it here in the TV station.
Is that
and
okay?
They announce it.
Yeah. Is that okay? It's an important, polite thing to do.
Is this okay? And oh, by the way, there's a trigger on it, and it goes click.
Yeah.
What happens to that infrared light?
Yeah.
That goes
We had
into your brain.
students in our high school who were traumatized and didn't want wooden guns in, wooden sticks in the shape of guns. They were marching, like the ROTC, they did the marching, and they carried one. It was not metal, it was wood.
Right.
They didn't want those in the building. They got traumatized with those are being moved around after school, and any student saw them. So, I mean, so we have trauma at one point and all kinds of penalties if you're a student, but now they're going to just
throw that all away. These kids aren't going to be traumatized. Somebody, I mean,
I don't know.
The insanity as an
adult. This is why we need conversation between parents and teachers, and we're all shut out of that. Mm-hmm. So this is right.
So it seems to me that this is being driven by the teachers' unions. It seems to me that they're the ones that are driving all of this.
I think it's the school boards.
And the school boards, okay.
The school boards are ultimately
aren't they a union of some kind?
No.
Isn't there a school
They do have
union?
a school board association, which they pay too much money and they take too much advice from that's really not well thought out.
Okay.
And they're all alternative groups. But it's the school board that runs the district. If the school board's supine and they say, okay, superintendent, you can do what you want, union, you can do what you want, then they're not in control.
Correct.
And they're not doing what they're voted in to do. And a lot of times they do that because there was a school board meeting where one member said, hey, I think we should talk about full-time in-school instruction. Mm-hmm. Superintendent got miffed and immediately said, we can't do that. We haven't vetted it in front of the union.
No, you need to vet it in front of the taxpayer and the parents.
Well, yeah. And then in Bedford, I heard if the teachers don't come back, they're told to resign. So it's reverse intimidation. You've got the administration trying to intimidate, and very successfully, I might add, the school boards. And the school boards, when they hear that, they're like, oh, okay, well, you tell us when we're allowed to think about that. It's kind of backwards.
So so if there are teachers, and I understand that, who have comorbidities or they're over 50, and it's maybe not a great idea for them to come back into full-time teaching, then maybe it is time.
Well, they could do remote.
That they do, I was going to say, do remote
But
training.
I know from many other issues, teachers who want to do what the administration doesn't want them to do will stay silent because they're afraid of well, there are no repercussions. We say there are, but the administration says there are none, but they won't speak up. We had a majority that didn't like competency-based grading. They would not speak up. The minority that loved it was always out there screaming about it.
Isn't it always the way?
Because they would get promoted for doing that, for defending the administration, whereas the others were defending the art of teaching and said it wasn't good practice. They couldn't.
Seems like there needs to be some 5 billion gallons of bleach poured on some of these states through the government, the school, et cetera, and we need to start from scratch. And it needs to be from we the people, we the taxpayer, since it's our money, which they're basically at this point, it seems to me, they've got your hand in your pocket, in your purse, in your wallet saying, you will give us this much money and we're going to tell you what we're going to do with it and you need to shut up. That's what it seems to me.
We're $500 million in debt statewide because of the shutdown.
How are you $500 million in debt when we've been shut down for 6 months?
They got Sununu got 1.23 billion, and the Democrats' leadership was fighting on how to use it. He got full control on how to use it because he's in control of our state, King Sununu.
Because of the emergency management.
Right. And now because tax returns and things haven't come in, other than real estate, which is hopping, they were $580 million short this time, whenever that came out. And that's a lot of money. That's $500 million.
And where do they think they're going to get it? Off our backs
The
with
next
us not working?
legislature will have to figure that out. So when you vote, decide what you want to do. If you want more taxes, pick a Democrat. If you want to try to control the spending, pick a Republican.
Well, it seems to me that we have this problem. Spending is the problem.
Well,
You
yeah.
certainly get enough taxes from people, and the property taxes are taken right out in your escrow, so we really don't have any control of that.
But
Maybe
we're
it's
paying people right now to sit at home. Our city hall is shut. It's shuttered.
Yeah.
We're paying people to stay at home because none of them. My son was furloughed for a while. He's back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the public sector is very different than the private sector. We get unemployment or furloughed. We get removed. If it's public job, it's sacrosanct.
Good Lord.
So can we afford it and for how long? And if we are paying them, fine. Let them do the work.
Right.
Put on a mask, get back to work. If you're a nurse and you can't get back to work, you resign and find something you can do. So if you're a teacher and you can't teach and they don't have space for you to remote, then maybe you find something else to do.
Correct. Not keep making us have to pay
Students
for it.
are going to be holding the short end of the stick.
It definitely is the short end of the stick. They're not being educated, which
If you're a high school senior and you've got 1/2 day a week,
you're not.
how are you getting into a good college?
That's what I want to know. Wow. Well, we're going to have to continue this conversation, winding this down. This is Doris Hohensee. Did I say that correctly?
Hohensee.
Hohensee, sorry.
It's all right.
I'm making it French. And you are running for
State rep in Ward 3.
Ward 3, and that's here in Nashua.
Right.
And you're on the ballot.
I'm on the ballot. We have a primary on September 8th. There's 4 candidates and 3 slots.
Okay, so do your research, and how can they reach out to you? Can they reach out to you?
I'm on Facebook.
Okay,
I've got a Facebook page and a personal page on Facebook.
and they can ask you questions, whatever
Anything
they think.
want. I was on the school board for 4 years.
So you have
So-
some really good inside information on how things work,
I
what needs
understand.
to be done, and you understand the process.
Right. And I know how we could fix things at the state to make it work better, to help parents, help students, help teachers.
Yeah, which is we have to move forward. We have a generation that needs to be moving forward, be educated, to be able to get jobs, to be able to fill out applications, to be able to go to college, to be able to do all these things that, we're kind of taking for granted, but it needs to go back to normal because there is nothing else going on. Thank you for joining me, Jocelyn Davis, on Chit Chatting.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.